Now, some lesbians are claiming they have faced accusations of being transphobic and threats of violence for admitting they're not attracted to transgender women, which is biological men who have transitioned into women. And this comes amid rows between women and trans women about the importance of sex characteristics and concerns around self-identification.
Right, OK, so lesbians have spoken out and said that they have at times even felt pressured to have sex with trans women or coerced into accepting them as partners for fear of being labelled bigoted or transphobic for not wanting to have sex with essentially biological men, right? So more than half of the 80 women who responded to a survey by campaign group Get the L Out reported being pressured or coerced to accept a trans woman as a sexual partner.
Yes, well, Angela Wild is the co-founder of the lesbian feminist activist group Get the L Out that we just mentioned there, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us. This will feel like a bit of a minefield for some people, and even us explaining it to the average person, they might feel quite baffled. So can you sort of, in layman's terms, explain what's going on here?
Okay, in layman's term, lesbians are women who are sexually and, romantically attracted to other women. And we're talking about sex here, female to female. And what's going on is that we are receiving, a lot of us are receiving sexual pressure from men who have transitioned, who identify as women, who identify as lesbian. So to have sex with these men. Otherwise, we get called transphobic, TERFs, bigoted, Nazi, sometimes racist. This is pretty much what it is. It's called the cotton ceiling. I encourage everybody to have a little look on Twitter for screenshot of that. And it's happening a lot online. It's also happening in real life.
Yes, I find that quite shocking, to be honest. The idea that if I'm a woman and I'm a lesbian and a man transitions into a woman, then I almost don't have a right to say, actually, I don't want to. I know you tell me you're a woman, but you're biologically male, so that's not for me. I find it shocking that people are being labelled transphobic and threatened because of that. And it brings me to something else, which is I've heard that lesbians have been forced to have sex with men previously as a form of conversion therapy in places around the world. There's a bit of a parallel here. That's shocking, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it is very similar. In fact, it's the same rhetoric that we hear, as lesbian when straight men want to engage in sexual activity with us, they would just say things like, you just haven't met the right man, you just haven't had the right sex with the right man. And this is exactly the same thing that we receive from men who identify as trans. How do you know you don't like it if you haven't tried it, and so on, and you're a bigot. Now, what I wanted to say is that this pressure comes in three different levels, and the mainstream organizations are in fact absolutely essential in promoting this idea. The first time that this cotton ceiling idea was mentioned was by Planned Parenthood in Toronto in 2012, and they run a workshop aimed at trans women, so men who identify as trans, to help them overcome the barrier they may face when they want to engage in sexual activity with lesbians, who by definition do not want to have sex with males. So we're talking about really quite a systematic cultural pressure. Stonewall is involved in this, the UN, LGBT Youth Scotland. Recently all these organizations have been promoting the idea that male can be lesbians, and that if you engage in lesbian sex, you can get pregnant. This is just not possible, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not. Sorry. And look, forgive me, because I will hold my hands up to this. I do find this whole thing quite confusing at times, but I think it's because it is. And frankly, for me, just full disclosure where I'm at, I don't understand where the feminism is in this. I don't understand how we've managed to get to a situation as a society where someone like me can tell someone like you what it means to be a woman and who you should be attracted to. And I just literally don't understand that. Do you feel as though now that your sexual preference is essentially being used as I don't know, discrimination in some way?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say this because women understand what is going on with lesbians, and a lot of men have your response where it's a bit confusing. If you're a straight man and you date a person that you think is attractive, suddenly you get in bed, that person has a penis. You might be a little bit confused. You might be a little bit challenged. You might not be happy. For lesbians, when this happens, it's a rape scenario. And this is what happens in real life. So absolutely, what happened yesterday with the release of this BBC piece, which was long overdue, and I'm very grateful that it's out, is that, well, organizations like Stonewall, but also prominent trans activists have been, again, reinforcing the idea that if we as a group exclude sexually other groups, then we are just as bad as racist. I mean, this is sexual orientation is about exclusivity. You would never say to a straight man, you know, you're actually being bigoted because you don't want to sleep with other men. Why is this courtesy? Why is this right not given to lesbians? I do not know. What do you think?
Well, Angela, thank you so much for clarifying all of that for us and explaining the situation there. The piece you mentioned there, which has been printed in the BBC, giving these accounts of lesbians, I found it really interesting. As we say, it's not necessarily an area most people would of course be thinking about or know the ins and outs of, but we appreciate you coming on this morning. Angela Wild, their co-founder of the Get the L Out campaign. And I think the comparison there, if you were a straight man and you obviously, you know, are dating or you go home with a woman and then it turns out that actually that woman
is a man,
was a biological man, of course you have every right.
I think I'd probably say something.
Yeah, exactly. You would have every right, you would think, to say actually no.
Yeah, no, but that's the but that's just consent, isn't it? That's normal consent. I don't understand how we've ended up in this situation where
because
some
then
people...
you'd be called transphobic. Because
but why?
because you'd say, well, you just because I'm a man who's transitioned into a woman and not a real woman, you're discriminating against me. That's what would happen, and it is absolutely absurd.
But it would be like, wouldn't it be like, say, oh look, I want to go on holiday to America. Well, why aren't you going to Africa, you racist? So, well, I want to go on holiday to America.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's probably too simplistic, but I mean,
but let us know what you think.